My name is Ryan Miller, and for most of my life, I've always been the dependable younger brother. My older brother, Josh, was the one who seemed to have everything figured out. He was taller, more confident, and always knew how to draw people toward him without even trying. Growing up, I admired him and sometimes resented him, but no matter how much we bickered, he was my brother and I loved him. Everything changed the summer he brought home his new girlfriend, Emily Carter. She was warm, kind, and carried herself with a quiet strength that immediately set her apart from the girls I'd met before. Emily wasn't just beautiful in the traditional sense. She had this way of looking at you that made you feel like you mattered, like you were the only person in the room. The first night Josh introduced her, we all sat in the living room watching movies. She laughed at my dumb jokes, asked about my college plans, and listened in a way that made me open up more than I expected. I tried to push the thoughts aside, telling myself it was just admiration. After all, she was Josh's girlfriend, and that alone put up an invisible wall that I could never cross. But as weeks turned into months, our paths kept crossing in ways I couldn't ignore. Josh had a demanding job that often kept him late at work. On those evenings, Emily would still come by the house, sometimes to wait for him, sometimes just to hang out with my mom and me. More than once, I found myself sitting with her at the kitchen table, talking about life, dreams, and fears I hadn't even admitted to my closest friends. She had this calming presence that made me want to spill everything, even the things I usually kept locked inside. One rainy night, Josh called to say he was stuck at the office. Emily was already at the house, and rather than drive home in the storm, she stayed. We ended up watching old reruns of a sitcom, sitting on opposite ends of the couch. At some point, we both reached for the popcorn bowl at the same time, and our hands brushed. It was nothing, just a split second of contact, but the way she looked at me afterward sent my heart racing. I told myself it was my imagination, that I was reading too much into a simple moment. But over the following weeks, small things kept happening. Her lingering glances, the way she'd laugh a little too long at something I said, the warmth in her voice when she called me by name. One afternoon, I was in the garage trying to fix my bike when Emily walked in. She was supposed to meet Josh, but he was once again running late. She sat on a stool, watching me struggle with a stubborn bolt, and then out of nowhere she said, "You're different from Josh, you know. Softer. Easier to talk to." I froze, my wrench slipping in my hand. Different good or different bad? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Good," she said, smiling. "Really good." That was the moment I knew I was in trouble, because I wanted to hear her say that again and again. From then on, every interaction carried a weight it hadn't before. When she laughed, I felt it in my chest. When she touched my arm, even casually, it lingered like fire on my skin. I tried to fight it. I avoided being alone with her, kept conversations short, and buried myself in schoolwork. But no matter how much distance I tried to create, the pull between us grew stronger. The breaking point came one evening when Josh had asked me to drive Emily home after family dinner. He had left early for work, and it was just the two of us in my car, the night quiet except for the hum of the engine. She looked out the window, her face lit by passing streetlights, and sighed. "Do you ever feel like you're in the wrong place at the wrong time?" she asked softly. "All the time," I admitted. She turned to me then, her eyes searching mine, and for a moment the world stopped. I could feel everything I'd been holding back pushing against me, begging to be let out. Before I could stop myself, I pulled over on a quiet street. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Emily," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I can't. This feels wrong, but I can't stop thinking about you." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached over and placed her hand on mine. Her touch was gentle, trembling, as though she was just as conflicted as I was. "Ryan," she said finally, "we can't. You know we can't." And yet neither of us moved. The silence between us was heavy with everything we couldn't say. Eventually she pulled her hand back, her face pale. "This has to stay between us. No one can ever know." I nodded, my throat tight. "I know." From that night on, things shifted. We never crossed the line, but the secret lingered between us like a shadow. Whenever we were in the same room, it felt like we were carrying a truth too heavy to speak aloud. Josh, oblivious, continued dating her. He loved her in his own way, though I sometimes wondered if he saw the depths of who she was, the way I did. Watching them together tore me apart, but I forced myself to smile, to laugh, to play the role of the supportive younger brother. There were moments when Emily would catch my eye across the room, and for a heartbeat, it was like we were the only two people who knew. The weight of that secret pressed down on me every day, a reminder of what could never be. Eventually, Josh and Emily broke up. Not because of me, but because life had a way of pulling people in different directions. She moved to another city, and our contact faded into silence. Still, I carry the memory of her with me. The quiet talks, the stolen glances, the almost confessions that hung between us. It's a secret I'll never tell. Not to Josh, not to anyone. Because some things are too complicated, too fragile to ever see the light of day. Some stories are meant to live only in the shadows of memory. And this is mine.